The N-word shock, part 1. Why does the word nigger generate very powerful emotions in both melanin-dominant humans as well as melanin-recessive races? Without much garrulity, I can notice this word in prominent African countries' names like Niger, Nigeria, and one of Africa's great river, the Niger. Let us spare no sacred cows in our winning formula as we deal with the word nigger. My religion is Kamitics. Ubuntu Mahati consciousness is my spirituality. I am a Kamitician. To tackle this N-word shock, we want to ask who named these countries Niger, Nigeria, or Niger River. Of course, the pronunciation is Niger or Nigeria, and therefore, because of that, it becomes a very soft landing word. The N-word, does it induce any form of self-expression, self-esteem, self-worthy, self-mastery, wisdom, harmony, or awakens our spirit? Some of the few major group building blocks or thinking or psychology. No, it doesn't do that. Why? Because today this word has a history that is convoluted, deliberately distorted, misunderstood, and shockingly it has become a trigger word for us to behave in a certain manner and also to understand it with many distortions. Was it always like that? No. The history shows it was most likely not like that. It is apparent, therefore, that if we are wishy-washy about it, this word will bamboozle us, will force us to become fools and chumps, and forever cause us to live in a mental servitude while singing and perhaps denying the only word that can bring us liberation. And in the end, at the end of the day, we become the miseducated nigger or the miseducated negro. Internalized oppression. It is rationally clear that humanity has been methodically brainwashed to use this N-word to boost a mental superiority image in melanin recessive races, while at the same time programming melanin dominant humans into accepting a supposed inferiority complex. Its success depends on what is now dubbed internalized oppression by social scientists. But what is this? Are you already suffering from its effects? This is described as the psychological trauma that ensures that a person from a stigmatized group believes negative stigmas or stimulus. The diagram that explains all this is given here. This is internalized oppression, and there is ethnic identity, and out of this ethnic identity, or let's say black, brown, or nigger, that's where you derive your personal self-esteem. And therefore, if this ethnic identity is oppressed and suffers from lower self-esteem, lower innovation, and is depicted as poor, non-human, it means that the collective psyche or collective self-esteem of this ethnic group is pushed towards the depression state, and therefore you do not benefit. That's internalized self-oppression. Therefore, you oppress yourself from inside automatically. You suppress your ninefold soul. You suppress your creativity, and all your freedoms are hinged and imprisoned by that kind of system that has been put in place. Why would any group today on earth isolate and implement such a program against another? The simple answer perhaps is that it is because of fear, of jealous and envy of that group. But this is where the definite subject of spirituality must be brought in. We shall deal with this in future post. However, if you ask, what did melanin dominant humans do to be lumped up and hated by these specific groups specifically given here, they have no specific answer other than hate. Most of the time they just look at you blankly. Why do they hate black or brown people? They too are puzzled because they cannot answer those such questions clearly. How do we rebuild our lives in the face of such unprovoked hate? Dr. Ojelade proposes some actions that are a worthy recommendation for everyone. Number one, she says, educate and empower yourself about white supremacy and global imperialism. Number two, she says, constantly evaluate how white supremacy and internalized oppression impact our day-to-day life. For example, with respect to our spirituality and practices, ask yourself, what is your concept of God? Very important. We've got a book, Creator or a God. Read that book. It clarifies this point and also allows us to understand what image of God should look like in your place of worship. And number four, she says, learn and read about the history of black and African people within the diaspora. Our history does not begin with American slavery. Number five, she says, make an active effort not to consume sounds or images or ideologies that demeans and oppresses and pulls you down. And then lastly, she says, don't let anybody else push an agenda on your behalf. Now, educate and empower yourself about white supremacy and global imperialism. So what you need to do first is to understand what is white supremacy. From this website shown here and given here, the slides from there, they summarize that white supremacy is a term used to characterize various belief systems, central to which one or more of the following key tenets are found. One, whites should have dominance over people of other backgrounds, especially where they may coexist. Number two, whites should live by themselves in a whites-only society. I'm reminded of the segregation laws that operated in Rhodesia, as well as apartheid in South Africa, and perhaps many other places today. Such thinking has now gone very subtle, very quiet, operates under the radar, but it's there implemented via various policies, economic as well as military, and open, overt, clear suppression. Number three says that white people have their own culture that is superior to other cultures, but we know definitely that all their core culture, whether music, dressing, food, they copied it from some people. White people are genetically superior to other people. That's what they think, but all of what they think is actually programming, is wrong, is not correct. Now, are all whites under the spell of this doctrine? Not at all. To the shock of us and many others, you can see that 86% of Americans disagree with white supremacy. Ku Klux Klan, only 2%. The white supremacy movement, only 4%. White nationalists, only 4%. The ultra-right, only 6%. Black Lives Matter, it's 50-50 maybe. And Antifa is only 5%. And this comes from a Marist poll here on PBS NewsHour, Statista. Now, since over 80% disagree with white supremacy doctrine, why is it still having a very powerful, almost self-automated presence in many policies and many displays of awesome power? The answer is very simple and straightforward. The answer is the one that is normally ignored by a lot of sociologists as well as scholars. Here is the answer. Because the civilization that we have on earth today is owned and was achieved by the actions and the works of Western civilization. Starting with the Renaissance, the culture of the West exploded. Over the next 600 years, rapid innovations in philosophy, technology, economics, military affairs, and politics allowed what was once a sordid, backward culture left by the collapse of the Roman Empire to dominate the whole world. What is ignored and what is not taught, and what very few would want to accept, is that this was built on the ashes of a black African civilization that flourished in Africa, in India, and any part of the earth that you can name. This is a fundamental truth, a driver that is operating in the minds or subconscious minds of the ruling elites, who are mostly of Roman extraction, and their black obedient leadership. Our Western civilization, its foundation is built on the ashes of black civilization. Therefore, black people African people, so-called niggers, are victims, not citizens in this civilization. Even our laws in many countries, specifically in Africa, are known as Roman Dutch laws. Think about that and consider that very, very seriously. Dr. Ojalade's third step involves divinity, where she asks, what is the image of the God that you worship? Now, Hamiti Buru Ethics Marifa Dohem asks you and asks everybody, including Muslims and those Hebrew Israelites, as well as Christians, how do you feel worshipping and bowing down to a God who looks exactly like the humans, who enslaves as well as brutalizes you today? Think about that very, very seriously as you consider this word, the N word. Before slavery and colonization, Africa was already in decline state from its highest or human highest level ever attained by any known civilization. So you must learn, know, and activate our own history. We come from royalty. We have fallen from very, very high pinnacle. Our ancestors were also the only civilized humans on the earth. In Africa, in Mohenjo-Daro, India, in the Americans. Don't let someone's agenda define how you see the fullness of black life and your vision of for living. We shall now share a little bit on how the N-word has been soiled by European scholars. The color white was deemed beautiful in the 18th century by Johann Joachim Winckelmann, the father of European history, art, as well as archaeology. Meanwhile, black became the natural antithesis of beauty. White was given a scientific name and historical lineage in 1795 when another Johann Friedrich Blumenbach called it Caucasian. Black was denominated Negro, literally black, unworthy of either history or lineage. White was made superior by the 18th century anthropologists who collected human skulls and made charts comparing facial angles and features, with African skulls placed on one side with monkeys and European skulls safely on the side. I would like to add that even in religious terms today in Southern Africa, in Ngunis, Bantu languages, having sin means black. Being righteous means white. At Amhlope. And being beautiful is also white. That's there. When you say tema, that's Karanga for I have sins. Tema means black. Remember our ancient great divinity Atem, so-called Atom. So that was the missionaries taught. That's what our current preachers and teachers, priests and so-called prophets teach today. And they sing songs that wash me until I am as white as snow and as pure as white wool. The N-word power. The power of the N-word comes not only from its historical usage but from black folk reclaiming the word and trying to divest it of its racialized power and reinvest it with black vernacular power, says James Braxton Peterson, the director of Africana Studies and associate professor of English at Leigh University. Premise that you would use a language directed against you and turn it around and use it yourself is a very powerful and subversive tool. We call it Bushido style. It's a Japanese tactic. We have to use Bushido style with the N-word power. But to do that, we must master our true Bantu history. And our history can only be true when it synchronizes with our identity. Only when you know your real ancestry can your identity fight with you using totemic activation force. That's what we want to deal with in our lives. The N-word comes from another level, now hidden from us by scholars, religion, and stereotyping what comes out of public and popular media. We will explore this in our next video. And perhaps then we'll be able to answer the perennial questions. Am I a nigger? Who is scared of me if I am a nigger? There is no melanin dominant human alive today who has biological parents but has no totems. If you have no totems, it means something has happened in your lineage, in your bloodline. Are your totems activated? It's time to restore your identity using totems. May your spirit glow. For more, email us on join@marifado.com. Maybe the N-word does induce the highest form of self-expression, self-esteem, self-worthy, self-mastery, wisdom, harmony, and awakens your spirit. Find out in our next post. Subscribe to our channel, Hamiti Iburu Ethics. This preacher Rabbi LM Dumizulu saying till we meet again, Tatenda Siabonga Edupe Enkos.